All right, so let's go into our multi-letter phonograms now. And the first multi-letter phonogram that we would teach is the one with the longest rule. And as I mentioned, when we teach the phonogram, we also want to teach the rule. And so we will teach the rule. Now with little ones just starting, I break the rule up into 3 different parts. So when I first teach this, it's shh, used at the beginning of a base word. And so that's what the student learns. Shh, used at the beginning of a base word. And then when they get really good at that, then I'll add to it. And I'll say, shh, oh, there's a little bit more. It's shh, used at the beginning of a base word and at the end of a syllable. And then when they get really good at that, then I'll add the last part. And yes, they learn this. Yes, they learn it. They get really good at it. And with my older students, I have a way of teaching it that in one session, they can at least have memorized it. And I'll show on the board at the beginning of a base word, like the word she, at the end of a syllable, like the word fish, and this is the last part, but not at the beginning of any syllable after the first one, except for the ending ship. And that would be, like, for example, the word nation. You have the first syllable, nay, the second syllable, shun, and so what's the sound that I'm hearing at the beginning of that second syllable? I'm hearing sh. Well, this is not the phonogram that I can use in that place because it's the beginning of the syllable after the first one. And so I would have to actually use one of my Latin spellings for the sh sound. And I'll get to that when I get to those phonograms. So I break that rule up when I am teaching littles. And every time we come to this card, when we're practicing our phonograms at the beginning of every day, every time we come to this card, we say that rule together. So I'll do it again. Shh, used at the beginning of a base word, at the end of a syllable, but not at the beginning of any syllable after the first one, except for the ending ship. All right, so that's that phonogram. And it's nice, that's a nice long rule, but we get that out of the way. And you know, they learn it. Our children have such amazing capacities to learn that kind of thing, and they'll learn it faster than you will. So what I did with my kids was I would challenge them. I'd say, okay, when you come back next week, we're going to have a race, and we're going to see if you can beat me. And I would ask them maybe what their favorite candy bar was or something like that, and then they could win it if they could beat me saying the rule. They liked that one. All right, this is say it again. And this is the one that a lot of times kids will have a hard time, little ones will have a hard time saying this, and so they use f instead. They'll say, oh, you know, my tooth is loose. And that's just because they haven't learned, you know, where the tongue goes. So again, get the mirror and show them my tongue. This is the only time you can stick your tongue out at me, and it's okay. And so they look in the mirror and they see their tongue, and practice saying that is voiceless, no voice, no motor, and everything is the same, just the difference is motor. So one more time. And again, I showed you this one. This is Now, we have 5 different basic ways to spell the sound. And there's absolutely nothing about those that's going to help you differentiate which is which. And so what we do is we teach a sentence made up of the words, and that helps us keep track of which one it is. And SWR, the sentence is, her church first worships early. And so we would associate this with the word her. So we teach this at the beginning. We say the of her. That's used 90% of the time. That is the most common spelling of We're going to teach that one, get that one established before I ever introduce the other ones. And then when I teach the other ones, I'll attach a word to it. Be aware that we don't want to do that with any of these other ones. I don't say as in think and as in those. That kind of information that's on the back of the cards is for you, the teacher. Make sure that you understand what you're teaching, not for the student. Student needs to hear the sounds only, see the written representation of the sound, and instantly be able to lock on to be able to go either way. See it and read it, hear it and write it. No other A is in apple or B is in boy. We do not teach that way. Again, that's a cue that's going to help the brain get that in there, but what happens is that cue gets in the way of the brain being able to have instant retrieval for reading and writing. So with this one, because we have the 5 different spellings, we do need to use the cue word. So this is as in her. that second sound, is the same as the third sound in you, So we have put and book, same sound, okay? It's that punch in the gut sound. So again, oo, o. E, double E, always says E. Now the always says E, you can add that. That's optional, it's not required, but E, double E. And that's the only one where we have, we are talking about the letter names. E, that's the sound. Double E, meaning I'm addressing the fact that there are two letters. Always says E, that's the sound again. All right? Oi, and this has a rule, oi that we may use at the end of English words. Oi that we may use at the end of English words. Now the reason I say that is because there's two phonograms that say oi. I teach them together and I call them buddies because they both say the same thing. But the rule is going to help me identify which is which. Oi that I may use at the end of English words, oi that I may not use at the end of English words. Why not? Well, English words don't end with I. And we learned that back when we taught the I and its buddy, the y-I. Notice the y-I here is taking the place of the I. So those are buddies. I teach those together and we can differentiate them because of the rule that helps us. This one's got a nice rhythm to it. When I'm working with little ones, like for example, Lisa, you've got David who is 3 years old, and Faith, you've got a 3-year-old. When you're teaching, especially little boys who like to play with their train, not that girls don't like to play with trains too, but I remember when my boys were really little and we had Brio train, I would teach them that a train says ch-k, sh, ch-k, sh, and we would do our little train motion. It was ch-k, sh, ch-k, sh. And I did that because I was trying to get that sound pattern into their minds so that when I taught them the phonogram, they were familiar with that sound pattern. Ch, k, sh. Now, why is it, why couldn't I say sh, k, ch? Because we're teaching the phonograms in the order of the sounds that are most frequent first. So, ch in English is used more often than this phonogram saying k, and even more often than it's saying sh. So we want to specifically teach it in that order. So that's a fun way to teach that one. Here's two more that are buddies. This is ow-o, and this is ow-o-oo-ah. And the reason we call them buddies is because they both have the same first sound, ow-o. Now, this is one where if you've got kids that are struggling, ow-o-oo-ah, ow-o-oo-ah. And you know what? Again, you just practice saying it over and over, and then that sound pattern gets locked in the mind, okay? But if they're struggling with that, this is one that I teach with emotion, and then I drop that pretty quickly. So let me show you this one. So ow, as in, I got bit by a mosquito. I call this the mosquito sound, or phonogram. Ow, I got bit. Oh, I looked at it and I see it's starting, oh, I got bit by a mosquito. It's swelling. It's getting red. And I go, ooh. And then it starts hurting. And I say, ow, oh, ew, So we call that the mosquito phonogram. So I'll do it one more time. Ow, I got bit. Oh, I see. It's a mosquito. Ew, it's swelling up, it's turning red, and it's hurting, it's itchy, it's ow, oh, ooh, ah. So that's just to kind of help lock in that sound pattern. Again, I do not stay on that for long at all. Once the kids get the sound pattern, we kind of tend to forget that we ever had that. Okay, we don't want to have the kids lock on those kind of little tools and devices. We want instant recognition for both reading and spelling. All right, two more buddies. We have A, the two-letter A. Both of these are A, two-letter A. This one may be used at the end of English words. This one may not be used at the end of English words. Why not? English words don't end with I. Okay, so A, two-letter A that we may use at the end of English words. A, two-letter A that we may not use at the end of English words. We have E, A. E, A. Now, if you have a hard time learning that, then you can point with your fingers to each of those sounds, and notice I'm pointing to the letters. Okay, E. Now, is there a letter in our alphabet that says E? No. So I go down here, A, E, A. And that helps us remember that one. If you've got an older set of phonogram cards, you might even see a picture of that pointing with the fingers on the back of the card. This is a newer set, and it doesn't have that picture anymore. So that's E, A. Or. Ooh. That's it. Ooh. Now, this is the third nasal. I talked about the the and now the And how on earth is this a nasal? The tongue is going up in the back, it's touching the soft palate, and it's actually sealing off any entry of air into the vocal cavity. So the air is being redirected up through the nasal cavity. On the back, on the newer sets of cards, she says this is a speech tip, this is a nasal sound. And nasal meaning you can plug your nose, try to say the sound, and you can't say it. It's hard to say. So if you have a hard time, because it's in the back of the mouth, it's hard to see how to produce this one, have the child say king and hold that sound. King, and there you go. Now, that's a really great word. Let me show you. Ing is a suffix. It is not this phonogram. So we're not saying ing. We're not going to teach ing as a phonogram. That is actually two sounds. That's a vowel and this sound. So ing is a suffix. And one of the reasons why that letter I is making the E sound, because the tongue is going up at the back to prepare for where this sound is produced in the mouth, and it's bringing the vowel production with it. So instead of the lower I, the tongue is lower in the mouth, it goes up and it sounds more like the E sound. So when I teach a word, let's say I've taught the word king, okay, I would say sound it out, k, I, king, and I really exaggerate the I. And after a while, when you reinforce that with the students, they catch on very quickly that ing, I'm hearing E, but I spell it with the I. And when I'm presenting a spelling word, I've got to make sure that I'm really reinforcing that I sound. Okay, that's getting more into spelling dictation. I'm going to stay focused on these. R. Now, that is a voiceless phonogram, and I want to differentiate between this one. This is W, that's voiced, no voice, W. And I'm going to tell you, I believe it is because of the fact that most of the time we pronounce this as the voiced sound. We say, where are you going? Where? Well, that's using this sound. Where are you going is correct pronunciation. Where, wheel, when. It's because we speak with this sound, we don't correctly pronounce this, that our students have such a hard time remembering when to use those WH words. So when I discovered this phonogram, I'll tell you way back, however many years ago that was, I actually changed my speech. And so I say the wheel. And now in normal speech, I don't exaggerate it like that. And when I'm dictating to my students, they listen very carefully and they'll say that again, because they know that I'm going to say it correctly. And so it's really helped them fine-tune their listening skills. I have to be very careful if I'm doing a diagnostic test, because I'm not supposed to help at all. But that when they're going, well, which one am I going to use? They go, say that again, because they're really listening carefully. You know, is it whisk or is it whisk? It's supposed to be whisk. Okay, so that's when I actually changed my speech. Okay, two more buddies. We have aw and aw. They're both saying the same thing. This is aw that we may use at the end of English words, aw that we may not. And why? Because English words don't end with U. Aw that we may use at the end of English words, aw that we may not use at the end of English words. And every time we see that phonogram card, that's what we say. That's how we identify that phonogram. When I'm giving a phonogram quiz, that's what I'll say. I'll say, right, ah that we may not use at the end of English words. And the student knows to write this one, not this one. Okay? K, two-letter K. Now this has more to it. This has also got a rule with it. So we're going to say the rule together. K, two-letter K, used only after a single vowel that says a, e, I, You say, oh my gosh, that's too much. Okay, it's the vowel sounds in short vowel, not long vowel. We're used to saying A, E, I, O, U. So let's just say them as their short vowel sounds. So when can this be used? This is only telling us when this can be used. It's used only after a single vowel, not after a multi-letter phonogram, not in front of a phonogram, but after. Used only after a single vowel that says a, e, I, That's it. If a vowel says A, I'm not going to use this to say the K sound. Okay? So that's the rule that goes with that one. Here's two more buddies. O, let's see, two-letter O that we may use at the end of English words, and O, the two-letter O that we may not use at the end of English words. Why not? And there's a rule about this at the end of words. So you'll have to look up Rule 18. Ed, d, t. Ed, d, t. The past tense ending. Let me say it again. Ed, d, t. The past tense ending. The fact that it's past tense tells you that this is tagged on the end of verbs. Well, only if you know what past tense means. So I gave that an assignment one time to a 9th grader I was working with. And I said, I want you to come back next time. I gave him some new phonograms. I said, bring me some examples of words that you find that have these phonograms. And I had given him this one, and he came back with the word educate. And I said, oh, we get to learn what verbs are. We get to learn what past tense means. Yes, it has those letters, but that is not that phonogram. All right, now we have the ers, the rest of the ers. So we already taught, for a while now, the student has been practicing and learning as in her. Now he's going to learn the rest of the ers. So this is as in her, as in church. I got to keep this straight. As in first, as in worships, and as in early. Let me go back to this one. Now, this card is actually showing you two phonograms. It's showing you w, and it's showing you This is the okay? But if I had just that on the card, then is it or is it And even though those are spelled exactly the same, I want to keep this one separate. So you'll notice on this set of cards, this is a newer set, the W, the W, looks different. On the older sets, I think it was like just outlined. The point is, that is its own phonogram. This is the OR is what's saying and there's a rule that goes with it. It's OR usually says when W comes before OR. Notice I'm using letter names because I'm talking about the relationship that these letters have to one another when I'm talking about spelling. So I'll say that again. OR usually says when W comes before OR. But when I read the card, I don't need to say that whole thing. I do need to practice that rule now and then. But this is as in worships, because my sentence is her church first worships early. So let me go through those again. As in her, as in church, as in first, as in worships, and as in early. Okay? I, three-letter I. Now, let me just say, I tend to just call all of these multi-letter phonograms. I don't think of this as a two-letter phonogram, and this part of this one, its name is the three-letter I. So the three-letter, we're focusing on, that's what we call this one. We're identifying it by the letters, okay? But normally we don't do that. Now, if you want to call, some of them, these are two-letter phonograms, these are three-letter phonograms, that's fine. That's not a big deal. But just be aware that, frankly, I like to just call them all multi-letter. Multi means more than one. And the kids learn pretty quickly that nice Latin root there for multi means more than one. But if you want, you can call the phonograms, the multi-letter phonograms, by the number of letters. This one, that's part of its name. So this is I, three-letter I. And let me just explain something. What we're doing here with the multi-letter phonograms is we're helping the student see a grouping of letters that have a common spelling pattern. So instead of sounding each of these out and trying to give each one its own name, like I, G, H, they're going to learn to recognize, oh, when they see that pattern, it's I. They don't have to worry about, in English, these are silent letters. Well, it's really hard to sound out something that's silent. It's hard. But when you start learning to recognize phonogram groupings, it unlocks English. I remember I was tutoring a second grader, and the mom came in and was very frustrated because in school she had the word through, as in put the thread through the needle. And she's like, that's such a hard word for a second grader. And I said, no, that's not a hard word at all when you think in terms of phonograms. That only has 3 phonograms. And she looked at me like, what? Because she was thinking letters. She, you know, the THROUGH. What is that? 2, 3, 7 letters. She's like, that's 7. And I said, no, it's only 3 phonograms. So you've got the th, or here, let me try it. Th, and then you've got the oo. So once a student knows phonograms, that's not a difficult word. They've got to understand the ow, o, u, sorry, that was a different one. O, u, f, off, ow. That's one of the last ones we teach. They've got to know that phonogram. They've got to know this one. The r, that's straightforward. So, and she was like, oh, so that's what we're doing with the multi-letter phonograms, is we're teaching groupings, common spelling patterns that have predictable sounds to them that helps the child be able to unlock English, both spelling and reading. So that's I, 3-letter I. And again, this is one of the rare ones where we actually count letters. All right, this is E, I, I. Now, I asked a question a couple weeks ago, which were some of the phonograms that are harder for you to teach or learn yourself? And we had several people say that this one was really hard for them. So I'm going to show you something about this phonogram. First of all, I do not teach it at the same time. Let me dig a little deeper in my cards here. I do not teach it at the same time I teach this one. Okay, I want the child to be nice and strong on this before I introduce something that could look like it would potentially confuse the child. And it does. It can. So, if you have a student who has any kind of reversal issues whatsoever, do not show this to them. Okay? The sounds are E, I, I. E, I, I. Notice I'm starting at the back and I'm identifying the letters. E, I, I. Okay, so I read it backwards. Like I said, if you have any reversal issues, you do not want to show that to them. But it's E, I, I. And I will tell you, how do they lock into the order for the spelling? They need to practice it in their penmanship. Say it while they write it. E, I, I. E, I, I. Practice that. Also, when I get to the other one that is confused, that can be easily confused with this, that one has a rule. English words done with I. So that helps me lock in that the I is first in this one. Okay, so E, I, I. J, 3-letter J. I'll say it again. J, 3-letter J. And this has a familiar rule. Only used after a single vowel that says a, e, I, a. That's the same as k, 2-letter k. So this was used at the same, hold on, you'll have to go around. Okay. This is the same rule as that one. J, 3-letter J, used only after a single vowel that says a, e, I, a. And yes, every time they see this card, they need to practice that rule. I find a lot of people don't even know that this had a rule. They're like, 3-letter J. Okay, got it. Well, remember, it has a rule, and we want to reinforce that rule every time we practice reading the cards. This is R, 2-letter R. R, 2-letter R. And I want to make sure, let me see where it is, that I am not pronouncing it like this. This is a 2-letter R. This is 2-letter R. So this is the same as the single letter R. However you want to say that, whether you say R or R. Okay, it's the same sound, but this is the 2-letter. I love looking into the history of these phonograms. And what we find is that whenever this phonogram is used, it's used at the beginning of a base word. Whenever this is used, the meaning of the word involves twisting of some kind. And so there's an activity, if you have the Wise Guide Enrichment Activity Workbooks, there's an activity in the Wise Guide where we got that worksheet, but it's where the kids look up various words that have this in it and investigate in what way does that word lock onto that idea of twisting. So that's a great, I love looking into the history of these words. Okay, so we had our first multi-letter phonogram that had that big long rule that went with it, the sh phonogram. I'm going to find it. Here it is. Okay, this one, and this was sh used at the beginning of a base word, at the end of a syllable, but not at the beginning of a syllable after the first one, except for the ending ship. Well, when can I not use this? That's when I use my Latin spelling. So I have sh used at the, and we call this the tall sh. This is the short sh. And this is sh, sh. It has two sounds, and all 3 of them have the same rule, used at the beginning of any syllable after the first one. So it's that little part of this rule where we were explaining when we can't use this. So this is sh, the tall sh, used at the beginning of any syllable after the first one. Sh, the short sh, used at the beginning of any syllable after the first one. And sh, sh, used at the beginning of any syllable after the first one. Ch, 3-letter ch. That's it. No rule. I always think there's a rule. Okay, so this is ch, 3-letter ch. And this is a, 4-letter A. Now this one is going to help us come into the one that people tend to get confused with the other one. Let me make sure I find it. There it is. Okay, so a lot of times people will get confused about these two. All right, so let me show you. First of all, A, 4-letter A. We lock onto that one. How do they learn the order? Practice with penmanship. These 2 letters are silent. They've already had I, 3-letter I, so they're starting to see that come up in the spelling. Okay, so we lock into A. This is A, E, I. So what's the first sound of this phonogram? It's the same as this one. Notice how they are the same beginning. So they both start with A. I mean, that's the sound of this one. That's the first sound of this one. They both start with the same letters. Okay, A. So A, E, I. A, E, I. Now, this has a buddy, A, E, I, that we may not use at the end of English words. Why not? English words done with I. A, E, I, that we may use at the end of English words. So notice, whoa, where was it? Where did I put it? Okay, this one here, it's similar. This does not have A. It's E, I, I. E, I, I does not have A in it. And this one has that we may not use at the end of English words. So we've got that little hint to remind us it's different from this one. So again, you know how we learn these? We have to just keep practicing them, saying the sound patterns, practicing them, both quizzing and reading them, and they will get these. You will have your kids give you quizzes. Every week, have your kids give you a quiz on 10 phonograms and have them throw those in. And after a while, you will start learning them as well. A lot of times, we expect our kids to learn this, but we don't take the quizzes and we don't learn it the same way that they are. They get really good at it because we're quizzing them, or hopefully we are quizzing them every day on phonograms. Not all just pick 10 phonograms, or maybe 5 phonograms and 5 review words, but every day they should be practicing listening to phonograms and hearing the sounds and writing them based on your dictation. F, 2-letter F. Now, I will tell you, when I teach this, I don't teach 2-letter F. I say Greek F, because whenever you see this phonogram, it's coming from the Greek language. So personally, when I teach this, I'll teach it as the Greek F. But on the official phonogram name for it is F, 2-letter F. This one is N, like in Nancy, but this is a different spelling, of course. But that's the sound N. two-letter N used at the beginning and at the end of a base word. N, two-letter N, used both at the beginning and at the end of a base word. And then this is the buddy. This is N, used only at the beginning of a base word. So I can use this at the beginning or the end, this one only at the beginning. So I teach those two together. And then I have the one with 6 sounds. I'm going to tell you the truth. The first time I ever saw this program in action, a mom was teaching her 4-year-old, and this is the phonogram she was presenting that day. And that is the day I knew I had to get my hands on this program, because I realized that the way that our school district was teaching reading was completely failing my students in my classroom. But I saw the way she was teaching the phonics code, and I said, this is the way you teach reading. And she was teaching this phonogram. So it's OUGH, uff, off, ah, ow. OUGH, uff, off, ah, ow. And when I showed you through, that was the phonogram. So it's ooh, and it's using OUGH. So it's the second sound of that phonogram. Now, how on earth do you learn 6 sounds? You have to hear it. Notice one of the ways I did that was I broke it into 2s. OUGH, uff, off, ah, ow. Let's do it again. OUGH, uff, off, ah, ow. As I do it, say it with me. OUGH, uff, off, ah, ow. And that's what you do with your kids. Break it into 2s and just practice saying it over and over and over. Again, how do they learn to spell it correctly? They need to practice it in their writing. So have them, when you introduce this, have them practice writing it. And the last multi-letter phonogram of our 70 basic is OUGH, that we may not, that we may. OUGH, that we may use at the end of English words. Now, if I have OUGH that I may use, well, obviously there's going to be an OUGH that I may not use. And that is actually one of the first advanced phonograms that I'll teach. And I don't have my advanced phonogram cards with me. So that's the phonogram EU. So as in neutral or Europe. So it's OUGH that I may use at the end of English words. And then when I teach that first advanced phonogram, then I'll lock it as the buddy that goes with this one. Okay?